Let's see if we can do something with web services in just a very short video. I've already built some code here. I've built a little Silverlight UI. So I've already got a UI which uses one of the extended controls, the data grid. And what it's done at the moment is we've got a data grid, and that data grid is going to expect its items collection to be bound, and it's looking for a property called customer ID and another one called company name, and it will data bind those things. I've also got a little bit of an insert UI sort of down here as well. It's just a bunch of buttons and text boxes and so on. And ultimately what happens inside this code is that if we go and look at the code behind, there are two functions that I've yet to write. One is called load data, which is probably the first one that I really need to write, so let's move that up a little bit. And the other one is called insert customer data, and I guess at the end of insert customer data we should really call load data again to refresh what we've already got on the screen. So I'm going to implement these in terms of web services. Let's be quick and move over to our website here and add into our website a new web service. So we'll go ahead and add a new item into this, and the new item we'll add into the site is going to just be a WCF service, and service.svc is fine for me. Maybe we should call it customer service, maybe that's more realistic. So we'll throw that in there, and what we'll do in order to get data to and from this service is I'm just going to use my Northwind database, and I will use link to SQL. So we'll add a new item in here. It'll be a link to SQL file, and this is really just to get our database going. So northwind.dbml, we'll add that into the website. Bear in mind none of this is going into the Silverlight project, it's all going into the website project. And we'll simply go ahead and talk to the Server Explorer here using our Northwind database, and we'll use a table. The only table I'm going to use here is the customers table. So drag that over to this design surface. We'll close that down, and we'll go and take a look at our web service. So the first thing we'll do on our web service here is we'll add to it a couple of operations. So we'll have an operation. This is just standard WCF. We'll add to it a couple of operations. The first one will just get us a list of customer, and that comes from link to SQL, and we'll say get customers. And the second one will be another operation, and we'll have it void insert customer, and that one will take the customer ID and it will also take the company name. That's how things work in the Northwind database. What we'll then do is go and look at the implementation of this. The wizard threw in for us, so we haven't implemented this yet, so let's go and throw in some skeleton methods to implement. And let's take these things and use link to SQL, so we can use the Northwind data context which was generated for us. And what we want here is a list of customers, so we'll say results, we'll set it to null, we'll return it right here, and we want to just query to get that. So we'll simply say results equals context.customers.toList. So that's pretty simple. We've got that back and we're sending that back to the client. What we'll also do is implement this insert customer down here. So we'll go ahead and say okay, let's use another one of those Northwind data contexts. We'll create it, and then we'll just say context.customers.insert on submit. We'll create a new customer record here, new customer type, and we'll put into that the customer ID, which we'll take from the parameter, which is customer ID, and we'll put into there the company name, which is from the parameter, which is company name, and then we'll call context.submit changes, and that will save that into the database. So we've kind of built a web service there with WCF very quickly. Let's just go and have a look at the web.config. And it gets a little messy in here when you've got lots of ASP.NET configuration, but the WCF stuff right now is just down here at the bottom. Let me see if I can lay this file out a little bit differently and drop down to the bottom. So here we are. What we're saying we're using at the moment is the WS HTTP binding. That's not compatible with Silverlight. I'm going to switch this to the basic HTTP binding. The rest of this is probably okay for me, so I'm going to build at that point. And what I want to now do is add a reference to that service from my Silverlight project. So let's go and hit our Silverlight project. Although as I'm looking at this, I'm realizing that this isn't going to work because I forgot to set my serialization for my link to SQL classes. They're not going to serialize over WCF right now, so what I need to just do is go to this diagram, get its properties, and say that I want a serialization switched on for these entities, otherwise that won't work. So that's an important step. I missed that out. We need to do that. Meanwhile, let's go back to the Silverlight project, and we'll go over here, Silverlight. Let's go to References. We click on Add Service Reference. We'll use the Discover button. We'll call this reference Proxy Code. Let's just do that like that. Let's see if we can just download that thing and see the operations on it. Make sure it's advertising metadata to us. Okay, fine. We call that Proxy Code. Let's OK that to add a reference into our project. And now let's wander back to the Silverlight code, and over here in the Silverlight code, when we call load data, let's use proxy code dot. We get this thing called customer server client, which is really the proxy. So let's call that proxy and create one of those. And then we should be able to call dot get customers. Now notice that in the model here we have get customer, but we only have an async version of it. So essentially what we're going to have to do is handle this completed event. So let's say plus equals on get customers completed. Let's just tidy this up a little bit. And down here in on get customers completed, what we should be able to do is look at the event args that we get back, and if things have worked, which we will assume for here now, we get an array of customers in the results. So what we should be able to do there is look to our layout route, look to its data context, and set it to be e.result, and pass that array through there. So if we go and build from that, let's make sure that our startup project, let's make sure that our startup page is the right thing. So let's just go and set that to be this particular start page. Let's press F5 and see how far or not we've got so far. So we're just bringing up the Silverlight application, hitting that page. It should be going off and asynchronously calling that web service. Now it isn't doing that. Let's just pop back to the code. It looks like we forgot to actually make the web service call. That might be a smart move. So let's say proxy dot get customers async. Let's rebuild. Let's press F5. We stand a better chance of working. It's not 100% guaranteed by any means, but we do stand a better chance of working than if you don't actually make the call. So let's just let that go across. And it looks like we've got a problem with the customer ID binding, but we're getting the company name in there. I would imagine that's just to do with binding, so let's just make sure that the properties that we've got on these results, if we take a look at customer as we have it here, we can see that it has customer ID with a capital ID. I'm guessing that in my binding file I've probably got customer ID with a lowercase ID. So let's just see if we can change that to ID. Let's press F5 again, and hopefully then we've called the web service, we've got a list of customers from it, and bound those back to the screen. Let's check that we've got that. Let's let it fire up. Okay, so we got customer IDs all the way down to Volsa at the bottom of that. So pretty easy to call that service. In fact, easy even to build the service to make it work with Silverlight. What if we wanted to do the insert part of this code? Well, simply all we need to do is go back to the code that we saw before. And as I said, we've already built a little bit of UI around that. So what we'll do here when it comes to insert the customer, we'll just say customer service proxy again, proxy equals new one of those, and then we'll say proxy dot insert customer async, and we'll pass the customer, and we'll pass the company. And we should probably handle the complete event, but we won't do that here just for simplicity. We'll build that. In fact, actually, let's handle the complete event, because I'm realizing we have a fatal flaw otherwise. Let's say insert customer completed plus equals. We'll say on customer completed. Let's move across and just simplify that code a little bit, because it's all getting a bit wordy. And in this on customer completed function here, what we will then do is load data, which is going to go and requery the web service after we've done the insert customer. It doesn't make sense to do it before we've done the insert customer. Let's build again. So let's press F5 on this. and we'll let it call the web service and get the data. And we'll try and do an insert. We'll have X, Y, Z, Z, Z. And we'll have the XYs. Let's have the foo company. Let's click done. We'd expect that to go requery the web service and populate the grid again. And I'm not sure whether it's done it because we should have put some kind of notification on there. But we can see we have been back. We've done the insert and we've touched the grid. As you can see, pretty easy to build a service so it's consumed by Silverlight. Pretty easy to call that service and bind the results to a grid on the screen.